Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus, here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Wednesday, the 22nd of August 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political news in the middle of the week. And to start off with, remember that all of the promises and the pledges made in the Conservative Party manifesto regarding to migration, specifically the controversial statement about bringing migration down to the tens of thousands in the UK, well, that might possibly be about to change, or might hinting that there could be at least some change to the migrant target levels. That's according to the International Trade Secretary Liam Fox. He suggested when he was launching his new UK export strategy yesterday that there could be an element of jobs being available to people in the UK and being able to come into the UK under some kind of migration scheme, which is separate to the idea of bringing migration down to tens of thousands. He in fact said the tens of thousands immigration target should maybe possibly go, saying it is the government target at the moment. And then slightly later saying we'll be reviewing what we do post-Brexit. I think that we do need to look in the future at how we match our employment opportunities with our migration policy. So very much linking the idea of jobs with the idea of migration and creating a migration policy which matches the job needs of the UK, ensuring that the economy benefits from migration. And as he made the point of saying it isn't a case of people coming over and using services without having to pay in for them. So this idea post-Brexit of him linking jobs to migration is not necessarily new, but it does to some extent conflict with the idea of bringing migration down as a policy in its own right to tens of thousands. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, that's been slapped down by Number 10. They released a statement in the Daily Mail saying, or rather a Downing Street source said, "We remain committed to bringing net migration down to sustainable levels to the tens of thousands. There is no consent in Britain for uncontrolled immigration." The real issue here is the fact that the Prime Minister Theresa May is very much pushing for the tens of thousands figure migration policy, very much keeping that as a migration level policy ambition for the government. But around the cabinet table, there is some suggestion, or rather reports, that they might not be at the case of complete harmony on this policy. If you look at, for instance, Liam Fox very much saying post-Brexit we need a migration policy which isn't based around numbers but around jobs. As well, last month, the Home Secretary Sajid Javid refused to back the target at the Home Affairs Select Committee, and saying as well that there's a perception problem over the decision to include students in that net migration figure number as well, bringing the effectively students into the net migration target as well. Liam Fox heads to China for trade talks. He's been slapped down by the government. However, what he does do is show that perhaps around the cabinet table the idea of migration numbers post-Brexit will be something which is on the cards and potentially something for change. It's been a controversial policy for a while, a lot of criticism of it, something which the Conservative Party have stuck to up until this point. Whether that might change, we'll have to wait and see. Next up, though, looking back on Brexit, hospitals are lacking no-deal planning and, in fact, in danger of running out of drugs in a chaotic no-deal Brexit. Now, that's a warning by NHS providers, which is an association of NHS trusts. Now, ministers and health service bosses are failing to prepare adequately for the potential failure of striking a Brexit deal. That is a warning which was in a letter by NHS providers sent to Simon Stevens, who's the Chief Executive of NHS England, and of course Ian Dalton, who's the Chief Executive of NHS Improvement. Now, the Chris Hobson, who's the Chief Exec of NHS providers, goes on to say in this letter, some activities are clearly best done at a national level and, in the view of trusts, are best coordinated by NHS England and NHS Improvement. However, there has been no formal communication to trusts from either of your organisations on this issue. Now, Mr. Stevens said last month that there's been extensive planning taking place to prepare for a no-deal scenario, especially on medical supplies and equipment, because, of course, in this story, the fact that medicine could not be readily available, or equipment could not be readily available, would be a significant concern post-Brexit in any kind of hard Brexit deal. And an NHS spokesman has said, ensuring the NHS is prepared for every potential outcome of Brexit is a priority. Government work leads on contingency planning for different scenarios, and we are working with them on this and ensuring NHS voices are heard. We will be working with our colleagues and partners across the NHS to ensure plans are well progressed and will provide the NHS with the support it needs. Now, however, there's a further story in this because Politico sent an FOI request, Freedom of Information request, which concluded that the majority of UK hospitals have yet made formal contingency planning for no-deal scenario at a local level. Now, they say of the 38 trusts in England that responded to the Politico Freedom of Information request to disclose documents relating to the preparation and impact assessments of different Brexit scenarios, 35 of them out of the 38 said they held no such documents. So there's another element to the story which has come out today. Very interesting, and no doubt you'll get some more of those coming through as well in the next few days. Finally, one more story, slightly dry but nonetheless incredibly important, which is the whole idea of what's going on in the economy. The UK recorded the largest July surplus for 18 years. The Office for National Statistics say there's a £2 billion surplus in July this year, more in taxing, which means that more was received in tax income than was spent on public services. So there was more money available for the Chancellor. It was double than this is double than what it was a year ago, and also nearly double the £1.1 billion surplus, which was actually forecast by many economists. So very good news. However, you should be aware, monthly figures can be quite volatile in terms of these kind of numbers, so they can be prone to revisions. Why is this so important in terms of the politics of it? Well, in terms of cutting the budget deficit, this is very good news for the Chancellor and indeed the Conservatives in terms of what they've always been championing since 2010, since the coalition, which is we will bring the deficit down and we will repair the economy to ensure that it's strong and so that it's able then to finance and properly invest in public services. That's, of course, the key Conservative line, which has been going on for years. This, to some extent, validates it. Borrowing in the current fiscal year at its lowest level since 2002. This has triggered talk of stuff like rapid decline in the deficit, the national debt that the UK has, extra room for spending, obviously the budget coming up in October, the need for a cash injection into the NHS of 30 billion, that's the new pledge. This money could now be available. Expect, though, as many economists and indeed commentators are saying, that it could be prone to revision, but also the reality is that this is going to place further pressure on the Chancellor to perhaps make more investments and loosen the purse strings of government, particularly on things like police, housing and NHS. And also the element of, with the budget coming up in October, could it be that tax rises are on the way? Because despite this good news in terms of the economy, there still will likely be a significant amount of investment which will need to be found somewhere in the government budget. Tax rises is always on the table and could always be used when the budget comes around in October time. That's pretty much it for today, and indeed the rest of this week. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and Twitter right here. Have a conversation with us in the comment box down below or just on our Twitter or Facebook pages. As it's recess, we'll be back again on Monday bringing you an update of what's happened for the rest of this week and to lead you into the week going forward. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have yourself a fantastic rest of your week and indeed weekend. See you about Monday, around about 9 o'clock.